Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. I am back with a brand new What If. It's gonna be part one of What If Deku had a time skip quirk. Of course, I'm gonna be adding my little own twist to things as usual, and most of the time I do. But I also want to say, make sure to leave a like, leave a sub, check the links in the description, all that good stuff. I am recording this a little bit later than I would normally record. My new PC just came in, so I kind of was messing with that, trying to figure some things out, and it kind of led to me to record this pretty late. But hey, it's all good. We're still going to get it out for y'all, and I'm not going to waste that much more of your time, and let's get right into What If Deku Had a Time Skip Quirk, Part 1, Timeless Hitman. And yeah, let's get it. Izuku Midoriya was born in a family that was very odd. One that were praying for a child that could take on the legacies that everybody else wanted. You see, this was a different part of Japan. A part of Japan that many did not know. A part of Japan that many didn't believe even existed. It was Hitman's Row, an underground city of some sorts, one that various people knew nothing about. A part of Japan that basically was flooded with dark clouds and covered up like it was never there when Hero Society began to rise, when quirks began to appear. The art of making a person disappear is the art of a hitman. That is the goal of these people, and they've been doing it for years on end. For those who know of him or know of them, for those that know of these so-called hitmen, they would appear and basically license their services. They'd get paid an abundance amount of money for, well, to make people disappear. And they were praying, hoping, and just straight up waiting for that one child that would change everything, that would change mountains, that would give them something to make everyone fear, to make them look over their shoulder and remember Hitman's Row. Yes, this may not be as prevalent as it used to be since quirks came about, because they haven't gotten their hands on someone that can carry on the legacy. But finally, when Hisashi Midoriya and Inkle Midoriya, two hitmen and a hitwoman who really weren't very good at their jobs, had a child, well, this child would come out to be Izuku Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya would be born with a quirk that would be so astonishing that many didn't know what to even think. At the young age of 4, Izuku would just appear in random places out of nowhere, as if someone would be looking at him, but then he would appear behind them in an instant. They would think that this kid might have super speed, maybe teleportation, something. But no, they would soon learn when Izuku got older, the way he would explain this so-called power, this so-called quirk, that it was neither. It was not super speed. It was not teleportation. It was known as time skip, time manipulation. Izuku could do it all. At the age of 8, he began sparring with the other kids, but the other kids couldn't even keep up with the momentum that Izuku would carry on. Izuku would appear and disappear in a matter of seconds, and, well, let's just say the kids would feel multiple punches in their stomachs without even Izuku moving. Izuku would be standing right in front of them, and out of nowhere, they would feel pain all over their body. Izuku being able to manipulate this time skip, but of course, speed was always a, well, disadvantage. With time skip, you could only control time to a certain extent. Izuku was able to get it down to the point where he could do it about 1 second to maybe even 2 seconds. And of course, this is pretty astonishing, but Izuku doesn't have superhuman speed. So He was able to, utilize it in his best way, but he continues to stretch out this time as much as possible. But of course, Hitman's Row is about production, and Izuku at the age of finally 10 after training for a while would get his first hit. Yes, a young child, and most of the time they will never send them out, but at the end of the day, he is some sort of prodigy, one they have never seen, so they need to know, is he truly ready for some of these hits that he needs to go on? Well, they'll find out relatively quickly. The hit that they want basically to be done is an older gentleman, one that runs a very corrupt company. If he dies, then it would all get transferred over to a young man that they all know, someone that they know personally, and that if he takes it over, Hitman's Row will eventually gain more and more power. So in a way, it would be gathering or taking one corruption and making it into another. But nonetheless, it would be in the favor of the hitman, so it's something they want Izuku to try. Izuku would walk toward the building and immediately act like a little kid, asking around, "Hey, do you know where my mom is? She got lost, and I got lost, and I don't know what's happening." Immediately, they would allow him into the building and sit him right at the front desk. But just as the elevators would open and close, Izuku would be gone, and he'd be standing in an elevator. Izuku constantly begins to move back and forth using his time skip as the elevator goes up so that the facial recognition will never even see him. Izuku, obviously being very well educated in every aspect of what's going on, he would eventually arrive on the floor that the boss or the person he needs to kill is at. There's 3 guards waiting though as they see a young boy walking up, immediately asking where his mom is, acting like some young child that's just lost. The boss would walk up and would wonder if the kid is okay, asking if he is. But just as he's asking this, Izuku seems to be flickering. He doesn't know what's going on, but it's as if his body is going non-transparent to transparent. He doesn't know what's happening, and he reaches out toward Izuku, asking the boy if he's okay. And just as he says this, all his bodyguards drop down to the floor, knocked out entirely. Izuku would look at the man, and immediately there would be cuts all over the man's body, and he would collapse to the ground and, well, bleed out. As quickly as Izuku was there, the flickering of his body would then be gone. The camera is not even able to get a trace of his face. The 10-year-old has gotten out scotch-free without any alarms triggered, without any, security even realizing it, and frankly the ones that did were on the ground dead. Izuku, already back at the hitman's base, or more or less the city of the hitmen, they begin to congratulate Izuku for a job well done. They heard through the grapevine that the job went extremely smooth. This would then put Izuku in a place of power. They would tell him that now it's truly time for his real training. Yes, they taught him things here and there, but as a hitman, you need to know everything. You need to do everything, and you need to be perfect. And that's what Izuku plans to be. Not only for himself though, for his family. That's what really matters. Izuku's mother, Izuku's father. That's who he needs to be perfect for. They are basically low-level hitmen, and now they just outputted the, possibly the strongest hitmen that they will ever see in their lifetimes, maybe multiple lifetimes. Izuku is so strong that he put his own family in a place of power. 2 of the weaker of the hitmen / hitwomen or women, that's exactly what power can do for you. Exactly what a quirk that strong can do for you. Izuku would continue on with his training, utilizing his time skip quirk, but also on top of just straight up sparring, straight up getting used to different martial arts, different weaponry, different everything. Eventually though, he would come across a prodigy like him, a child prodigy from another city of hitmen, or another underground version of Hitman's Row. As he comes across them, though, it's a woman. No, a girl. Someone very similar to his age, both being at the age of about 14. This woman, or this girl's name, is Charlotte. Charlotte is basically like him, but in a different regard. She can fly. She has these angel wings that allow her to swoop down and kill people in a matter of seconds, but she's heard of Izuku, taken back by the fact that everybody's so fond of him. But as respectful as Izuku has been taught, he walks up and extends his hand, asking or hoping that they can hopefully be friends and eventually partners and basically bring back the Hitman to the surface. This woman, or this girl, Charlotte, would refuse this, saying that she challenges him to a duel, that there's only one prodigy that could really that will stand in front. Izuku says that he has no intent to fight, and of course the leaders at this moment of the Hitmen begin to say that there is no choice now. She has challenged you, so a fight must proceed. Izuku asks what this fight is to, and they immediately say that it's to unconsciousness or death. That's just the rules that they make within the Hitman's Row. Izuku shakes his head, and as she begins to basically fly in after him, a flicker is in an instant. Izuku fades right through her as if he was never there in the first place. Izuku tells her that there is no beating him. Whatever she studied, whatever she decided, and whatever she figured out how to defeat him is not something that she actually knows now. Of course, she's shocked to hear this, as if how did Izuku even know that she's been studying him? How does he know anything? But Izuku says that's a lucky guess. But at the same time, nobody comes in and challenges another prodigy without a plan. Izuku tells her that his quirk is interesting. Very interesting. He might be able to pause time, stop it, skip it. He might be able to be in a void of timeless space, a void of nothingness. But there's a difference. What she saw was 4 to 5 seconds of stop time. Well, that was a long time ago. Izuku can stop time for far longer now, and his stamina keeps up with it, with a massive amount of techniques that she has no clue even exist. Charlotte would mock him and then walk toward him and say that just can't be true. Eventually, she'll land a hit. Izuku, as she's flying forward, would dash right in front of her, immediately standing in front of her as he taps her on the chest. Just as he does this, she's frozen in place. Izuku tells her that this is her own little time bubble. He just continues to speak with her, saying that this time bubble will be let go whenever he so chooses, or he can continue to output more and more time, and let's just say her life may get accelerated a little bit. Izuku begins to focus harder on his hand, but she says that she yields, that she gives up, and that she loses. She swears she won't fight anymore. Izuku lets her go, and Izuku smiles. Yeah, the whole aging fast thing was a lie. Sorry about that, but I also didn't want to fight you any longer. We have things to do. Izuku would then begin walking away and ask, one of the leaders currently at this moment about what their next mission should be. He immediately learns about this mission, and Charlotte is pissed that he basically underhandedly won the match. But there was no fight to be won. Izuku already knew he would win. There was no beating him in this scenario. Izuku tells her that doesn't really matter now and wants to know if she's going on this mission with him or not. And of course, she's confused, wondering what kind of mission he needs help on. He says that he doesn't necessarily need the help, but it's a new change of scenery. They're actually headed somewhere else. And this is pretty interesting. Their next mission involves one thing, and they are actually headed to school. They're actually, well, more specifically headed to the UA entrance exam. They have some time. They have some time in between, but that's exactly where they will be going. It is explained to them that the whole entire goal of going to the UA entrance exam isn't actually to necessarily get into UA and basically go through all of these steps. They actually have heard that the successor of All Might is going to attend that school, or is going to be at that school. They're not so sure who that is, they're not so sure who that's going to be, but that could lead them to a couple of things. For one, that would lead them to know exactly who the successor of All Might is, and also basically his greatest weakness. On top of that, that should lead them to the villain group who they know as the League of Villains. Izuku would immediately ask, how does that even correlate? But they begin to bring up that there is a long history with All Might and All for One, and the League of Villains is directly connected to All for One. So we can assume that they want to kill All Might, and All Might being a future teacher at UA, well, I mean, what better place would it be to have All Might get taken out at the UA high school itself? Izuku hears out the entirety of the, basically either, well, I guess not really the plan, but kind of the, like, output and the reason why they need to go, and he feels that actually does kind of make sense. So he doesn't really think too much about it, and he asks Charlotte if she's truly ready, and if she wants to train with him over this next, well, couple months before the entrance exam, well, they can do that as well. Charlotte says that she'll make sure to beat him one of these days, and that's just going to be a fact, and Izuku just shrugs, saying that whatever, it doesn't really matter. And their whole goal, I guess now, is to squeak into UA. But with their potential, their strength, and their training, that shouldn't be too difficult. Even all the hitmen really believe that. Hitman's Row then goes down on basically shutdown. Nobody's going in, nobody's going out. This is the mission that matters the most at this moment. Once they leave, then everything will continue on as normal. Months would pass, and tons of training would go throughout, and Izuku and Charlotte would head off to the UA entrance exam. When they arrive, they would bump into some people, but frankly, these people have no consequence to them, and frankly, Izuku and Charlotte are just on the lookout for a potential successor of All Might. During this time, Izuku would just keep his eye open, take his tests, and obviously listen to Present Mike explain the first part of the exam. After taking that said written exam, they pass it relatively easily, but now it's ready for the practical. And the practical seems to be just a bunch of robots. 1-pointers, 2-pointers, 3-pointers, so on and so forth. And, well, this should be easy enough. Izuku then heads in, and as he does, he watches Charlotte fly in with a mace, just smashing through robot after robot. He actually forgot that they were allowed to use their weapons because it was deemed necessary for not only their quirks, but also their fighting styles, and that's kind of what they were able to secure. But Izuku doesn't really care. He dashes around, time skipping everywhere, smashing robot after robots, but then realizes something. And realizes something very, very, very crucial. And that's, well, there's two hero courses. There's 1A and 1B. Well, this actually matters because what if the person that is All Might's successor gets into 1B? Yeah, that may seem far-fetched, but everybody has their off days. Everybody is still training. Everybody's getting strong. Even Izuku knows that he wasn't the strongest person ever when he first started training. Oh, of course, he was really young, but still, that was the case. Everybody's like that. What if All Might's successor, well, somehow just got the quirk, and maybe All Might's successor hasn't been training long enough? He doesn't really know. He hasn't seen anybody that has a similar fight style to All Might's, not really at all actually, and he just continues to break a couple until he feels that he gets a score that wouldn't get him into class 1A, but would get him into class 1B. Of course, at the very end of it, Charlotte actually racked up a metric butt ton of points. It's absolutely ridiculous. But the 0 pointer wouldn't really be much of a problem. Actually, well, Ochaku Uraraka, the person that got stuck under rubble initially, would be just swooped up by Charlotte and taken away, confirming that Charlotte would probably be getting first in the exam. It might sound crazy, but Charlotte's quirk isn't just flying. She has some sort of, or what they know as, a battle angel quirk. It hasn't been studied very much. Of course, the hitmen have their own doctors, but it's kind of outaged, so they only know of her wings. But it's pretty obvious that Charlotte has some sort of, well, strength enhancement, so she kind of just smashes through more things as it goes. Of course, she got destroyed by Izuku, and there's a reason why. His quirk is built for 1v1s, and it's not even close. Of course, he can beat groups, and that's definitely something he's shown, but a 1 versus 1 is practically impossible against him. That's why she'll never really beat him. Nonetheless, though, Izuku gets enough points that he feels he will pass, but will most likely get put in Class 1B, and Charlotte kind of overdoes it and becomes the first in the course, even in front of someone like Bakugo. Nonetheless, though, Izuku would basically just wait for him to get this so-called letter. And when it would arrive, it would announce that Charlotte got first place, and everybody would be pretty shocked, thinking that this is great, and that this is amazing, and that Charlotte's going to be in Class 1A, blah, 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 and all of this stuff. And they basically begin, some other people from the other Hitman's row begin to think that, well, she's better than Izuku if she got a higher score. But Izuku kind of laughs this off, saying that they can think whatever they want, but Charlotte will never beat him in a fight, and will never be stronger than him. Of course, they kind of take offense to this, but immediately Izuku shuts them all up, saying that there are 2 courses in the hero course, 1B and 1A. If she goes to 1A, he can go to 1B, and they can find this so-called, well, All Might's successor. Izuku shutting all of this down, everybody's shocked. He was able to think of this, and nobody else even thought of it. Charlotte didn't even think of this, and gets kind of mad that he didn't even bring it up to her. I mean, it would have been easier that way, right? But Izuku says that it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, they were able to figure this out and settle these things how it should be settled. When they open their letters, obviously it's revealed that Izuku did get into Class 1B with basically about middle of the pack type of scores. Izuku would be allowed in Class 1B, and obviously Charlotte would go to Class 1A, and they would be on the lookout for this so-called successor of All Might. Izuku, though, in Class 1B, would be just, well, doing orientation stuff on the first day, and a little bit of, well, bonding or just learning exercises that Vlad King has prepared. Izuku quickly realizes that Class 1A would have been a lot more fun, because I guess they did a whole quirk assessment, they got threatened to get expelled. Like, that just sounds exciting to Izuku. I mean, other than that, it's kind of boring what they're doing right now. But nonetheless, it's okay. I mean, they'll figure something out eventually, right? The next day, that actually would be figured out. They decide that they're going to have a bit of a training session, and Izuku would be pretty excited for this. But then something interesting would get brought up. Something that Izuku wasn't expecting at all. So what they thought was that All Might was finding his successor at UA. Well, that wasn't exactly the case. All Might has already found his successor, and found them a long time ago. And their his successor would be introduced relatively quickly, especially when Izuku begins to basically hear about what they're going to do. That they are actually going to be meeting up with the Big Four. Izuku immediately asks, what's the Big Four? And he swore he heard something about that, but it was the Big Three. And immediately Vlad King says that, well, another hero jumped onto the scene, or at least a future hero jumped onto the scene in the 3rd year classroom, and frankly has shown insane promise, and she's come from a whole different country. Izuku is shocked. He realizes something. That has to be them. That has to be her. Izuku then asks, what's her name? And her name is Melissa Shields. Izuku asks, like the famous Shield, like David Shields. And immediately he says yes, that it's good to see that he's well informed. And actually, she'll be helping them out in their training sessions today, making sure that their support equipment is working flawlessly and that, well, they're all doing their 1 versus 1s properly. Izuku doesn't know what to say. This is definitely a revelation. He thought it would have been a first year, but if we're talking about a capable third year, problems come into factor. Very, very big problems. If there is a mission that he needs to kill her, that makes things a lot more difficult. He hopes that that's not what it comes down to, and that's not what the Hitman's Valley wants. And, I mean, frankly, he doesn't know if he'll even be able to do it. He doesn't know how strong this person is. I mean, it's All Might's successor for a reason, right? They would eventually all head out, get their so-called hero suits on, and Izuku would just get on a uniform that basically was made for him, or a newer version of his Hitman suits. And he would head out and meet up with Vlad King and Melissa Shields. And just as they meet up, they begin to explain exactly what's going to happen. 1 versus 1, heroes versus villains. It's simple enough. The hero needs to stop the villain from entering the building and touching the bomb. A bomb that's basically, if they touch, would be considered as a lethal explosive and a lethal, well, destructive weapon to blow up the building. But if the hero stops them, detains them before they can get to the bomb, or stalls them long enough for 5 minutes, meaning that other heroes would arrive on the scene, then the hero wins. It's actually pretty simple. And the villain can take any way that they choose. It could be a frontal assault, behind, or whatever, but it all starts with behind this line. This line is just one big square around the building, saying that basically the villain can start from any area, so the hero needs to be prepared. Of course, Izuku thinks that he wants to get this over and done with as quick as possible, and they immediately ask who wants to go first. Izuku raises his hand and says that he will go first, and they ask which side does he want to be on. He says that he'll be on the villain side, and well, they say that's just fine. The next person would raise their hand, and it's actually Tetsu. Tetsu would say that he guesses he'll be on the hero side, and he will be the Iron Wall. Immediately, Izuku is just thinking of different ways to immediately just win so he can go on with this. He needs to break this down in his head. A third year is All Might's successor. This means a lot. It means more than he could possibly imagine. They're not like him. Third years are different. He's read up on them. They say that the big three, or I guess the big four in this instance, is on the level of top pro heroes. We're talking a top 10 pro hero at UA. He's never fought a top 10 pro hero. Yes, he's efficient with his work, but that's a whole different story. That's different. But just as he's having this conversation in his head, they tell him that the time is up and it's time to go. Izuku would look at Tetsu and flicker one time and immediately be right next to the bomb, touching it. They're all shocked. Vlad King, and so is Melissa. Izuku already won. How the hell? Vlad King is completely speechless. The fact that Izuku has basically beat Tetsu in a matter of a second, a split second at that, instantaneously. And immediately he's back where he once was, and he pats Tetsu on the shoulder, saying that the matchup 1 versus 1 is impossible with someone like him. As he's walking away though, let's just say there's something else that wants to be asked. Melissa would walk over and ask if it's really true that a 1 versus 1 is impossible against him. Izuku would look at her and realize what she's doing. Oh shit. In his head, Izuku knows what he's going to have to do. He's going to have to face her in this same setting. Immediately, Vlad King says that since the fight was pretty quick, how about we flip sides? But this time, Melissa will be the villain and Izuku will be the hero. Izuku doesn't know what to say for a second, but then realizes he needs to keep this facade on and not act like he's nervous. He slams his fist into his hand and says that, well, I mean, he won't be taking it easy on her. Izuku smirks and walks by. Melissa immediately says that, well, there's a reason why she's in the big four, and there's a reason why they added another person to the big three initially. Izuku kind of laughs at this as well, saying that the big three is what it's supposed to be, not the big four, that she is just some reject, and that it's going to stay that way. He promises that he is stronger than she even realizes, that he might be here and he might be a first year, but he has far more up his sleeve than she can possibly imagine. Melissa smiles and says that it's good to hear. Confidence is fun. Immediately, the countdown would begin, and Melissa would take an immediate jump toward Izuku. This right here emulated All Might. Yeah, she's definitely the successor to the #1 hero himself. And that is a wrap for part 1 of What If Deku Had a Time Skip Quirk. If y'all enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a sub, make sure to leave a comment, all that good stuff. And I hope all of y'all have an amazing day. Later.